need a producer. Let me make that very clear. You want to produce the goddamn morning show? Produce the morning show, because I'm still sharing this stuff out. It's too quick. Good morning. Good morning. Welcome back to Coffee and Sports, the morning show. I'm the NFL genius, Gene Walzak, and I will be here with you Wednesdays and Thursdays for the foreseeable future. And the guy that's here every single morning, not only does he know better, it's Mo better. Good morning, Mo. Mo is just perplexed. I think we froze out. He'll be back in a second. That's okay. It gives us the opportunity to introduce Mo. You there? You're good now. I can see you moving.
Yeah,
good morning. There we go. You was like frozen. I seen like you were staring you were staring a hole through me. I was kind of nervous.
We're good.
All right. And listen, guy, podcast name deferred. One of the best baseball guys you can listen to. We got 2 baseball shows on the network. We got Up and In. We got podcast name deferred. He's also on the Sports Report. Guy is super knowledgeable with Major League Baseball. He also knows the NBA, NFL. It's my man, Seven. How you feeling this morning?
Man, I'm great. Thanks for having me, man. This is going to be a fun show. I can't wait.
It's going to be fire. I'm going to share this out to all the groups. If you guys can do me a favor, please like, share, and tag followers in the comments so we can get to as many people as possible. But what I want to open with is there's news that happened in Major League Baseball that is absolutely insane to me. And guys, if you've listened to me talk about this before, then I think you'll know what side of the coin that I will yeah, it's very somber Wednesday morning, but that's for your Cavs. That's not for what I'm about to announce. But I'm very upset about it. I'm very upset about the news that happened by Major League Baseball. So it is a somber Wednesday morning for me. Major League Baseball decided to reinstate banned players after they die, after they pass away. And I'm not one to pour soil on the grave. I'm not one to kick dirt on the grave. That's not what I am. But, and you know what's funny? I feel like I'm kind of a little bit mixed because I'm one of the people that believes that Joe Jackson, Shoeless Joe Jackson, didn't throw the World Series. And I think most people that check the stat line, he batted 356 in that World Series. He didn't throw the World Series. Let's be very clear. So I don't think Joe Jackson knowing about it, fine, okay. All right. But the big name, the big conversation, everything that's around is Pete Rose. Pete Rose is now eligible to be elected to the Hall of Fame. And listen, with those baseball writers out there and how strict they are, I still don't think he'll make it into the Hall of Fame. I don't think that'll be a thing. I just don't. Because there's so many things out there. But this is one step to allowing it to become a thing. And it's a step that I cannot sit still for. Now, Seven, I'm sure I missed a detail or two when I was breaking down the new rule and what that is. If you don't mind educating our listeners of what Major League Baseball just did yesterday.
So, well, it pains me to have to say something nice about the MLB Commissioner, Robert Manfred, because I cannot stand him at all. It has become, he announced yesterday that when somebody is banned for life, they are reinstated upon death. And so players like Pete Rose, Shoeless Joe Jackson, Buck Weaver, the rest of the members of the 2019 Chicago White Sox World Series team are now, or the 1919 World Series team are now reinstated, meaning they're eligible for the Hall of Fame because, and this actually, so while it wasn't explicitly said after they got banned, it wasn't until Pete Rose became eligible right after he got banned to be in as a player that the Hall officially said anybody that's on the banned list is not eligible for the Hall of Fame.
Good for the Hall, by the way. Great call for the Hall.
It's completely reasonable. Now, for me, the one thing that I look at with this is I think that there are situations where we can consider what these guys, we can reconsider the situation. like with Buck Weaver.
Okay.
But the only reason Buck Weaver, who was one of the best baseball players of the early 1900s, go look at his stats, they're ridiculous. So one of the best third basemen ever. The only reason that Buck Weaver got banned was because he was in the meetings and knew what they were discussing, but he didn't take any money. There's nothing to suggest he did anything to actually throw the World Series, but because he knew, the MLB commissioner banned him as well. For me, it comes down to a very simple thing. Can you tell the story of baseball from that person's era without them in the hall? Can you exclude them from the story and still talk about what happened? In the case of Shoeless Joe, Buck Weaver, and Pete Rose, we have to take pause. I'm not saying that they definitely should get in. I'm saying we have to take pause and talk about it. Pete Rose especially, because he was the all-time hits leader in baseball. Still, to this day, the all-time hits leader in Major League Baseball. But what he did as a coach is why he got in trouble. He shirked the rules multiple times, got caught trying to smuggle money in from Japan to get out of paying taxes on it. There's a long list of things that Pete Rose did as a coach that are why he got banned, and I don't have a problem with it. But they're not alive. They don't get the honor. But as baseball fans, can we tell the story of their era without them being present? That's the question that we have to answer.
I don't agree with that. And Mo, I'll go to you first. And CJ is already in the chat. I love CJ. He goes, I've always been of the unpopular opinion that the Hall of Fame isn't a moral Hall of Fame. Rose, Jackson, Weaver, Bonds, Clemens, Manny, and Sosa should all get in, good or bad. I don't agree with that either. And
I don't either.
So, Mo, I'm going to go right to you, but I'll preface leading into you with this point. Does the guy that drives the car of a guy, like a getaway car for someone that's robbing a bank or robbing a house, still go to prison? And the answer is yes.
Yes.
And if you're in the room and you knew Major League Baseball was about to have a fixed World Series, but you didn't take money, but you kept your mouth shut, I think that you're just as guilty. Just being clear. Maybe not just as guilty, but you're guilty. Mo, what are your thoughts on Major League's decision? And then I'll get into my opinion fully.
So I feel the same way. I mean, I don't care if you didn't do anything. If you knew, then to me, you're trying to play a high ground where I'm not a snitch. You would have been better off being a snitch. You would have been better off telling the truth about what was going on. I feel like the fact that they're reinstating Pete Rose and Shoeless Joe and guys of that nature, I'm not with that, but I think that the writers being the way they are, being the gatekeepers, Pete Rose not getting into the Hall of Fame. I don't think Shoeless Joe Jackson they're not getting to the Hall of Fame. You can talk about, can you tell a story of their era without them? You can tell the story of their era. They're just not going to be in the Hall of Fame, but you can tell the story of their era. You can tell everything about them, and they're not going to be in the Hall of Fame. I don't think they should be in the Hall of Fame. If you like, there's different levels of cheating, but if you're in on cheating or part of cheating or aware of cheating, you shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame.
Also, I want to add to your point. You could tell the story of the 1919 Black Sox without putting them in the Hall of Fame. You could put a whole segment in the Hall of Fame of the 1919 scandal and tell the story.
There is one now, actually.
Exactly. To be clear, I am not as strongly against a lot of the guys on the 1919 Black Sox for not snitching, right? Joe Jackson batted .356 during that World Series. He was incredible. He didn't throw the game. Buck Weaver 100% did not throw the game or take money. I'm indifferent on those situations. I think what they did was wrong. I think the penalty of them not being able to be honored as they were alive, not letting their family members see them honored, I get that. The Pete Rose stuff is on another level for me. So, Seven, you said something earlier that he bet on games as a manager. That's the only ones that they can prove. But there's been allegations that he bet on games as a player. He's denied them, but why do we believe Pete Rose? He denied that he bet on them as a manager for years. And then ultimately in 2004, he, basically said that he did. Also, MLB Rule 21 violation. Their action directly violated MLB Rule 21, which prohibits gambling on baseball games by those with a duty to perform in the game, manager, player. That banishment is a banishment forever. Now, it says for life, and they're using the term for life I read that as for life of the game of baseball. I don't read that why they're alive. I read that for the life of the game of baseball forever. Now, they're taking that rule into interpretation and saying for the life of the player. Here's the other problem that a lot of people are just glazing over. He was 32 years old, dating a 15-year-old, and said, no, but we didn't start having sex until she was 16. He admitted it. It's not even like the part that is mind-boggling to me is he didn't even go, no, definitely didn't do that. No. We were dating when she was 14, 15, but we didn't have any sexual contact until she was of the legal age in Ohio of 16. That to me is just as bad, if not worse, than what he did in the game of baseball. And I understand it's not the hall of good people or the hall of morals. I get that. But when someone tarnishes the game of baseball so poorly, like Pete Rose does, I don't want him to be a representative of the game of baseball. And maybe I'm sitting on my front lawn like, get off I'm not trying to be that guy. But there are things in life that I cannot compromise my morals on. And being 32 years old, dating a 14-year-old, 15-year-old, and having sexual relationships with a 16-year-old, and that's if we're believing him. You got to read the stories of this guy in this girl's house. Their parents are cooking him dinner. She's 15 years old. It's like, what are we doing? I'm sorry if I'm so adamant about this, but I think I don't care that Pete Rose died. I don't care. I did not shed one tear for the man. He's an awful human being. He is a stain on society. And when he was asked about it in 2019 at a Phillies, basically someone brought it up to him like, hey, Pete, what about the allegations about, this and that happened with you dating a minor? He goes, babe, that was 50 years ago. Get over it. He didn't even have any type of remorse. This guy, the only time he ever admitted to having remorseful for betting on baseball is when Bud Selig said, the only chance you'll ever be reinstated is if you admit what you did. And then he admitted what he did. And Bud Selig basically goes, see, I told you so. He was lying for years. I'm still not letting him in. So he wouldn't have admitted to betting on baseball if Bud Selig didn't put that out there. He wasn't doing it to be a good guy or clear his conscience. He's an awful person.
Yep. One of my co-hosts on podcast Name Deferred. His name is Craig. Craig was a baseball writer for MLB Trading Card Magazine and a few other newspapers in the 70s and 80s. And into the 90s, a little bit in the early 2000s. He's got an extensive experience, was in the locker rooms, all of that. And he interviewed Pete Rose not long after the gambling allegations dropped. And Pete was vehemently denying it, all of that. But Pete, throughout his entire time, was not good with the press. And when you're a representative of the game, especially at a top tier, being respectful to the press is a key job because they have the ability to paint whatever picture they want about you. And so it's as a top tier representative of the game, you have to hold yourself to a higher standard. So I think because of how, if we remove the horrible allegations, just that piece right there, I think is going to limit Pete from being in the Hall of Fame for a long time until there's enough people there that don't remember that. But with the allegations of him and a young woman, or a teenage girl, really, not even a young woman, she's a teenage girl.
Thank you.
That is something that, like, I think it was said in the chat, like, it's so horrible to think that was acceptable then.
Yeah. CJ said that's super gross. I always struggle to understand how things like that were more acceptable then.
It's that part bugs me, like, especially with the things that I've been through in my life. And I have complex PTSD because of things I went through in my childhood.
Yeah. To
think about what she went through just horrifies me as a parent and as a person. And then we're going to have Pete, even all these years later, act like that's okay. A lack of remorse is why Pete Rose was not allowed in baseball for the rest of his life, because he never showed remorse for any of his actions. Even when Bud Selig made him come clean, he didn't show remorse. He just admitted what he did. And those are two very different things. So for Pete Rose, as much as he is the all-time hits leader, there is something in the hall that shows him as the all-time hits leader. That it exists, just like there is a display about the 1919 Black Sox. They're in the hall. They don't have a bust. So we have to go back to that question: are they worthy to have a bust? Because we know the story's being told. The only one that I can kind of advocate for is Buck Weaver. And here's why. With Buck Weaver, yes, he knew and didn't say anything. Okay. But first of all, the entire team pretty much was involved in this scandal. Management knew everything. When the Houston Astros in 2017 were stealing signs, not a single player faced punishment. It was only management, and it was a season. People that knew about it, it was a season. I could see Buck Weaver getting punished for a short amount of time, losing a season, something like that. That's completely reasonable with having knowledge. But I don't think a ban is proper for that situation. Shoeless Joe took money. That is confirmed by multiple historians. Even though stat-wise he didn't throw the World Series, we know that. He took money. That's a little bit more involvement, so I can hear more about that. But Buck Weaver specifically, out of all of these individuals that are on this 16 players that are on this ban list that have officially been reinstated, Buck Weaver is the only one that I think actually deserves more attention and consideration than any of the others, because he certainly was not as guilty of anything as everybody else, which was primarily gambling. One of the things people don't talk about with gambling in baseball is in the early 1900s, it was rampant, mob control. Yeah. There's a guest that I had on podcast named Deferred, Arthur Waldo. He's a baseball historian and an author. He's a great dude, knows a lot. He's got books talking about players getting pushed out of the Pirates because they wouldn't work with the gamblers and the mobsters to take control. The 1919 Black Sox was the accumulation of several problems that were going on in baseball at the time.
Yeah.
So, and I think that was kind of baseball's way of saying, hey, we got to put a stop to this.
Seven, I want to ask you a question on that real quick, and I want to get Mo's answer on it too. Because the Joe Jackson thing to me is so interesting to talk about. Now, Joe Jackson, I don't think there's any doubt that he started the World Series by throwing the World Series. And are you more guilty for doing it all 7 games of the series? Or are you, I think, did the series go 5 games or 6? Did it go 7? I don't know. I got to look that up. I don't want to give the wrong answer there.
Yeah, I can't remember. Yeah.
But are you more guilty for doing it the whole series in 1 game? I think if you do it 1 game, it's just as bad as doing it the whole series. And Joe Jackson, 100%. And even the films that portray the 1919 Black Sox, they say, I'm not doing this. I can't do this. After he did it for a game. So do you think they're more guilty, the guys that did it the whole series, versus Joe who did it for 1 game? Or I think they're just as guilty. If I was given a basketball equivalent, right? And a guy had 37 points, but the game was a 2-point game and he knew what he was doing. He's like, I got to throw this game away. I'm going to pass the ball to the other team and they're going to dunk and they're going to win the game. Or a guy that just stunk it up, was 0 for 9. Let's say Max Spruce threw the game last night. giving an example jokingly. But like, is guilty, right? I don't care if Donovan Mitchell had 35 points. If he threw the last ball of the game away on intentionally to throw the game, that's throwing the game. Do you not think that's the same, Seven? And then Mo, I'd love to hear your opinion.
Well, I mean, I'm going to answer your question with a question. If somebody more guilty when they only kill one person versus killing 7 people?
I thought that in my head the same way.
Like, I mean, it's a murderer is a murderer, you know? So I do see the criticism about Joe Jackson because of the money, the first game, stuff like that. Like, it's reasonable. But, of course, just like we talked about with Buck Weaver, the MLB always does levels of punishment based on what you were doing. The first time you get caught using PEDs, it's a year. The second time, you're done. So where does that cutoff line exist? Now, when it comes to point shaving, you got to have a hard line on that. It's all or nothing.
You want to laugh at this? Because I didn't even realize this. It used to go 9 games, and they went 8 in the series. Best of 8. They won 5-3.
So
I did not know that until right now.
That's interesting. 9 World Series games. Good God.
Yeah, it used to be a best of 9, and the Reds beat the White Sox 5-3 in 8 games.
I mean, for the guys that actually participated, I completely understand the sentence being more severe than somebody like Buck Weaver, because there's different. I think there can be different layers of guilty, but you also have to hardline if you actually participated. Like somebody that drove the car actually participated versus somebody that just knew the bank robbery was going to happen, right? There's different levels of participation there. And so I think that can apply here, personally.
Buck Weaver batted .325 in the series, too, just to be clear. Mo, what is your thoughts on what we've been talking about? I'm sorry. I feel like that I had Seven on, and he's given us a lot of knowledge. But what are your thoughts on everything? I can't hear you, Mo. Yeah, you're muted.
First of all, Seven is the man, so I've enjoyed listening to everything he said, and it's not that he's just knowledgeable in baseball. I'm hearing a lot of baseball history, so I'm soaking this in. If you told me they played best of 9, I'd have been like, that's news to me. That's wild to me that they did that. That's insane. Look, I just take a different stance. First of all, if you're banned for life, you're banned for life. I don't care if you died. You're banned for life. I don't like the idea that there's this weird loophole like, well, they're dead now, so they're not banned for life anymore. I don't care. If you're dead, you're banned for life is banned for life. That's pretty much, to me, it should be that cut and dry. And so on the a murder is a murder. Is it really like if you murder one person, you're a murderer? If you murder 7 or 8 people, you're a mass murderer or a serial killer. I think there is a difference. So culpability, if you knew about the cheating and you didn't say anything, you didn't out now do it, but you're not a hero because you didn't say anything. You're guilty. You're guilty. I don't think anybody has clean hands in the whole situation. If you tell me, well, Shoeless Joe Jackson still batted .356, so he could have batted .406. If he cheated for one game, he still cheated. You're wrong. I don't think you get to come out of it a hero. And I think, like I said, it's just wild to me that in death, the greater plan is when I die, I can get in now. Like I think that's wild. But that's MLB. They kind of operate on a whole nother level.
Mo, I looked the rule up and I was wrong. And I'll be clear. Because it's constantly listed on ESPN for lifetime ban. That's not what the rule says. I'm going to read the rule to you because I want you guys to understand how annoying this is. 21A. And I'll just get to the end. I'm not going to bore you with the whole rule. Immediately with such solicitation of all facts and circumstances connected therewith shall be declared permanently ineligible. That is not saying banned for life. Every news station you see, it says banned for life. The specific rule of 21A says permanently ineligible. There's no life involved in that. That's permanent. I write something in permanent marker and I die tomorrow, it's not coming off the wall.
So if it's permanently ineligible, then okay, how are they now eligible?
Because the commissioner changed the ruling of them, and he made them no longer permanently ineligible.
That's
I
all I'm saying.
Disagree with.
Right. I think that's shiesty, man. Like if you're gonna try to find a backdoor way to get Pete Rose and those guys into the Hall of Fame, then we need to find a way to go ahead and put Bonds in and put Clemens in, and you know what I mean. If those guys are gonna get in, then the other guys should get in. And if you want to put a little asterisk by their bust and go, was accused of this, and that, never failed a drug test, you can put the whole story on the bust.
The question I want to ask you guys, because I want to get back into that statement is, you know how I feel about Pete Rose. You guys know how I feel about Joe Jackson. I'm a little bit more indifferent. Buck Weaver, I think Seven makes a really good point. He didn't take money. He knew about it. Maybe not a permanent ban, maybe a ban of time, right? Maybe like a 5-year ban or a 10-year ban. That makes sense. Like, I think Buck Weaver not taking money but knowing about it is bad, but it's not as bad as taking money and actually throwing the games. So I hear that, right? My question that I would ask both of you guys is, okay, the steroid era, what is your feeling on them? Sosa, Mark McGwire, Bonds, all those guys that were during this. I heard a conversation yesterday, and someone told me the only clean person of that era was Ken Griffey. No, he wasn't. I love Ken Griffey. I'm not saying Ken Griffey did steroids, but there was accusations that he did when he was in Cincinnati to recover from the injuries I don't know if anyone's clean of that era. The steroid era of baseball, are we deleting that era? What is your thoughts there as far as those players getting in the Hall of Fame?
So I can't remember the name of the report, but when they were starting to actually take control of the steroid issue in baseball, as Bug Selig was on his way out.
Either the Mitchell report or the Balco report. Which one are we talking
about? The Mitchell report.
Okay.
Over half of the players surveyed admitted that they had used steroids. Okay. Yes. This was an honest thing. So the first thing that we can say is pretty much everybody was doing it. My Craig that was in the locker rooms and stuff, he worked with the Giants. He knows when it started. He can tell you exactly when it started, but he can't tell you because of obvious reasons. But we have to. I think there are a lot of factors that we can look at. Since pretty much everybody was doing it, personally, I consider it a level playing field. And here's the thing: the league. First of all,
hold on, I got to stop you there. When you say pretty much everyone was doing it, so you look at it as a level playing field. I want to give you a counterpoint to that, Seven. Here's the counterpoint to that. I'm the guy that didn't do it, and I never made it out of AAA. I never made it to Major League Baseball because not everyone, 70% of the league or 60% of the league was doing steroids. They took my spot. Right. They stole money from my family. Sorry, I just wanted to.
And I get what you're saying, and you do have a valid point, but it's unfortunate that there were some players that lost out on it. But we can look at Bonds. Barry Bonds had a Hall of Fame career before there can be anything that could be traceable to even consider that he was using steroids. That piece there, even if we exclude the alleged steroid use, because like you said, no, he never failed a drug test, nothing was ever proven. Just off of that, because in 1992, so that obviously this is before the steroid era started, 1992. Barry Bonds signed the largest single-season free agent contract in MLB history for the time. The other thing that we have to look at from the steroid era is already in the Hall of Fame are several managers, owners, and the commissioner of baseball himself, whose careers all thrived because of the steroid era. But now we're going to go back and punish these players who built the mansions that we live in. If we're going to either we take those guys out, and that means we have to make sure we can't have Joe Torre in the Hall of Fame. Tony La Russa, he's out. His career was built on the back of players with Hall of Fame. There is a list of Hall of Fame managers a mile long that we have to pull. We have to pull the commissioner. Every baseball writer from that era that got recognized and put in the Hall of Fame for their contributions to baseball, we got to pull them out too, because without that, baseball was struggling at the time because of that strike in 1995. Baseball was struggling. Those guys saved baseball. So the steroid era, I think, is different than gambling, because gambling questions the true integrity of the game in a way that we can't begin to fathom. But with the steroid era, we have to look at it different because of what it was. On the surface, steroids are bad. Let's be clear. But steroids didn't give those guys the ability to see the ball where it was supposed to be and hit it. Steroids can't fix that. Steroids help with muscle recovery. That's their job, is helping with recovery. So, and being able to build up and bulk up faster. That's why Mark McGwire ended up looking like an upside down triangle by the time he retired. So we have to look at what it was. Yes, most of the league was using steroids. So we do have to take out of it. It doesn't excuse the behavior, but also the league didn't want to test them. The league didn't want to know. The league was complicit. There were guys that were literally shooting up in the locker rooms. Every team knew, every manager knew, every owner knew, every writer of that era knew what was going on. Nobody said a word. So at that point, we have to look at it as that was the game for that era. And that,
but a memo came out in 1996 after the steroid era, after everything happened. A memo came out in 1996 that stated that they needed to stop steroid usage. They knew it was rampant in the early 90s. They needed to stop it, and people still refused and did it under the table, and they hit it. So that's something that I just can't be okay with. We got to move forward. Seven, do you have time tomorrow to come on and continue this conversation? Because we have too much basketball to cover. If you can come on tomorrow, we'll continue this conversation in the beginning. I do want to ask you guys, I want to highlight this point because I thought it was really a good point and I didn't think about it. And CJ brought this point up and I can't ignore it, right? He said, it is so often ignored that the 19 Black Sox were under duress. 1919, and you're going to say no to the mob? That was more prevalent than can be imagined. If you don't know, that was the era of Al Capone. That was Frank Nitti. That was Johnny Torrio. Like, that was the old Chicago mob, and the mob saying, you're going to throw these games or we're going to murder your family. Like, that is serious duress. So, like, that's a really good point that I guess I was too ignorant to think of. We will continue the baseball conversation tomorrow. We got to move to the NBA. We only have 25 minutes left, and there was some good basketball again happened last night. And we got to close the chapter on this year's the 2014 Utah Jazz. I'm sorry, the 2025 Cleveland Cavaliers. They're the same team.
Right.
I mean, if you remember the year that they finished as the 1 seed and they got knocked out by a young Jamal Murray, and they basically got eliminated from the playoffs pretty early. Donovan Mitchell-led team. It's kind of the same thing. But let's get into last night's Cleveland Cavaliers, Indiana Pacers game. Mo, I will tell you this. After game 3, when the Cavs went in and beat Indiana, I was questioning your logic because you said there's no way, unless you're playing 2K, that the Indiana Pacers are losing this series. The Cleveland Cavaliers are not coming back in this series. And you were right. So, Mo, take your bow, being the most knowledgeable basketball guy on the station, and let us know your thoughts on last night's game.
And the funny thing is, I thought Cleveland came out and gave a good effort. Like, they had at points in the game, you thought they were going to take control. But what never changes is Indiana's pace. They're constantly in attack mode. And every time you thought Cleveland was going to grab a hold, Indiana would go on a run. I don't think at any time during the game did Indiana fear losing. That's another thing about watching the Pacers play. They play fearless basketball. And it's a unique team because this isn't a team with 2-3 superstars. I don't even think Halliburton's a superstar. I think he's terrific, and he's having maybe a superstar-like run. I think he's an all-star, and I think he's definitely the head of the snake. But there are games where he's not the leading scorer or the second leading scorer. They move the ball around to where everybody's a scoring threat and in constant motion. And it's funny because the initial conversation we were having about baseball and throwing games, It was weird because Donovan Mitchell, who's been in the league for 8 years, he's never gone to the free throw line with 3 free throw attempts and missed all 3. And he did that last night. He missed all 3. It's 106 to 100. If he hits that, it's a 3-point lead with more than 3 minutes to play, and he misses all. That was insane to me. I thought that was a back-breaking moment for Cleveland. It's I don't want to kill Donovan Mitchell. I think he's a terrific player. But what I do believe is when we start talking about these stars, there's levels to this. We could ask a simple question, and I know the answer today, but plain and simple, is Donovan Mitchell capable of being the best player on a title-winning team? Never mind, I don't know the answer to that. So far, 8 years in his career, what I've seen, no. He needs another guy. He needs to play with somebody as good or better than he is. If he's the best player on your team, there's a ceiling to how far you're going to go.
I'm going to take it another step forward. You did say another thing, and I want to highlight how accurate you were. I actually looked up the stat. Andrew Nembhard's career three-point percentage in the regular season is 33.6. 7. I want to ask you this question because this is absurd to me. Nembhard's now played in a few postseasons. He's got I think he's got 20 postseason games under his. I want to get the exact 27 career postseason games under his under his belt. What do you think his 3-point percentage is in the postseason? 33.6 during the regular season, 27 postseason games. That's a big body of work.
That is. I mean, I feel like Andrew Nembhard probably, I would say it's still below 50. It's got to be.
Oh, so it's got to be over 50.
It's 49. It's so absurd. It's 49%. That is an absurd number. He's the greatest three-point shooter in postseason history.
It's actually come down.
That is absurd. 49% from 3. Andrew Nembhard and Larry Bird and Reggie Miller. Move over, Steph Curry.
Right.
I'm kidding. But that is you call that too. That is an absurd number that Andrew Nembhard is shooting. And last night was Tyrese Halliburton's most efficient game this postseason. 10 of 15, 8 assists, plus 27, 31 points. He was efficient. 31, 8, 6, 10 of 15 shooting, 60% from 3. Halliburton's coming after that Jalen Brunson clutch award.
Yes, he is. I like that.
I'm looking forward to it, man. I'm hoping we get Knicks Pacers last year was a 7-game war. Yeah. And although I think neither one of them will beat anyone in the Western Conference.
I don't think so either.
But that'll be a fun series to watch.
Yeah, there'll be some good basketball.
I think that's another series that can go 7 games easily. Even though it's a different Knicks team, right? They went out and got Bridges and added Towns. It's not the same Knicks team. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out because on paper, obviously the Pacers are the deeper team, but I think the Knicks have the better starting 5.
I don't think it's the same Pacers team either, though. I think that Pacers team did what Oklahoma City did this year. They basically ran it back and they all got better. It might be the same players, but the growth in a lot of those players this year, it tells you everything you need to know. Steph, what were your thoughts on the Pacers versus Cavaliers game? And as I got a Cavs fan listening in the chat. I'm going to talk to Control tonight. I got to give him advice. Could the Cavs run it back with this entire roster? And no. My answer is no. But let me hear your opinion.
So there's a couple of things that stand out to me with the Cavaliers, specifically in the loss last night. Let's not even focusing on the rest of the series, just last night in a win or go home game. Donovan Mitchell did have 35 points, but he was only 8 for 25 from the field and 4 for 13 from 3. He didn't make his first 3-point until I believe the second half. The second thing that stood out to me was at one point the Cavs had a 19 or a 20-point run in the second quarter, and then it just vanished.
Yeah.
Just vanished. Within, 6-7 minutes, of playing time, it was gone. The Cavaliers just completely forgot how to shoot. They went from dropping dimes to dropping the entire game in the flip of a switch. Max Strus was a complete liability last night. 0 for 9, did not get to the line once. That is a staggering number.
Did you hear about the Max Strus text message?
Right. I was going to get to that. I love that. Yeah, go ahead.
Max Strus sent a text message out to the team before game 5. He goes, if you don't believe, don't show up to work. He texted his team going into game 5. And Max Strus proceeded to go 0 for 9, 0 for 6 from 3 for 0 points.
Was he the one that didn't believe? He was just letting him know he wasn't coming in that day? Is that what
he
happened?
Didn't show up for work.
He didn't show up for work, right? That text message did not age well.
No. If you guys don't believe, don't show up. I'm going to miss every shot today. I was dying.
No, they cannot run it back. They ran it back from last year, and it worked. They got continuity. They have more chemistry. Mobley elevated. Garland had more responsibility. They had the best record in the East. Everything said they're terrific, and I questioned what would they be like in the playoffs, because there's the regular season, and then there's the playoffs. And look, I injuries played a small role, but I think Indiana was clearly better than them. They were better than them. And if you run it back, I think you're going to get the same results. I think Cleveland is going to make a big move and shake up their roster construction if they want to be title contenders.
I'll tell you right now, Miles Turner, might not have showed up very well on the stat sheet, but he was rim protecting like no other last night. And that 17-2 run that you're talking about, 7, that happened in the third quarter, it was definitely the game-changing run. The Cavs were in the lead, and the Pacers went on a 17-2 run mid-third quarter. Guys, we got to move forward because, listen, Mo, I'm going to be that guy. I give you your roses every time you deserve them. Last night, I'm hoping that the Oklahoma City Thunder made Mo a believer. We asked ourselves multiple times what this Thunder team would do if they were put with their backs against the wall in the fourth quarter, and last night was a perfect example of that. The Denver Nuggets, basically Nikola Jokic, I'm not even going to add Jamal Murray because he had the most inefficient 10 of 27 game I've ever seen in my entire life. He was so inefficient, scoring 28 points, like 10 of 27. So I'm not adding him to this. But Nikola Jokic was super efficient last night. The Thunder their backs were against the wall. They were down 8 points going into the fourth quarter at home. They lose this basketball game. They're losing game 6 in Denver, and the series is over. Period. And when the moment struck last night, listen, we can talk about what they've done all postseason or they're not showing you. Last night, they absolutely answered the bell. So, Mo, can we give Oklahoma City the benefit of the doubt going forward, or do they have to do it on the road for you?
Well, I gave them the benefit of the doubt the game before last. That was a tight game.
There we go.
And they had struggled all year long in clutch time situations. They played in the least amount of clutch time situations throughout the year because normally what Oklahoma City does is they blow the doors off you. So they're never in clutch time situations. So they were terrific the game before last night in a game that they needed to have. It's weird because I actually came into thinking they were going to blow the doors off the Nuggets. Denver played terrific for 3 quarters. And they ran out of gas again. That includes the Joker, by the way. He ran out of gas again. It was like watching the Knicks and Celtics. They would get ahead, they would have control, and OKC would go on a run. I just felt that OKC, they wore them down. It wasn't just Shea. J-Dub hit a big 3. Yeah. The rebounding, Chet, the defense, like it was a team effort. Dort made a big 3 in that run. They're a deeper, better team than the Nuggets, and it shows. And I will give them credit. Those are 2 back-to-back close games that I would have told you coming into the postseason, I didn't think they had the mettle to win those kind of games. And
Well,
maybe this series is maybe this is one of those series where they grow up in this series, right? Because last year, in a very grinded out series versus the Mavs, they didn't fare well at all in any clutch time moments. They crumbled against the Mavs.
You nailed it, though, with Nikola Jokic. The guy had 44 points, 15 boards, 5 assists, 2 steals, and he played the most minutes on the Nuggets. He played 44 minutes. You can't do that. And the way Oklahoma City's playing them, it's like they're not going for the head. They're going body shot, body shot, body shot. They're making him work, be a volume scorer and an efficient scorer. And they're coming at him from all angles. They're coming at him from every different angle to make him work to earn each bucket. And his stat line showed you that. But you're right. Down the stretch, you can see the huffing and puffing. You can't have him at 44 minutes. You can't. The guy's too big to play 44 minutes.
Not just play 44 minutes, but he's also bringing the ball up. You know what I mean? Like he's also bringing the ball up, expending energy that way. Like if you're going to play him 44 minutes, take the ball out of his hands, at least let somebody else run the offense. He was everything for them. He had to be for it to even stay close, because you're right. Jamal Murray looked like he was going to have a monster night, and he faded. He was a non-factor in the fourth quarter. Aaron Gordon, who's been their most consistent player outside of Joker, he was a non-factor. They don't have enough shooting. Michael Porter Jr. once again did not show up again. Like now, the way the Thunder are playing Michael Porter Jr., they're treating him like Russ. They're like, leave him open. We're good. We're good. He's with us. He's with us.
It's funny you say that. I wanted to bring up the Michael Porter Jr. Russell Westbrook stats. 49 combined minutes for a combined 2 of 14, 0 of 8 from 3, and 6 total points. Oh, by the way, combined for 3 turnovers and 7 fouls. They had more fouls than points.
Yep. It's a tough ask. And even going back to Denver, where they could tie the series up, it's a tough ask. I don't think Denver's capable of blowing Oklahoma City out. I think they can play well and they can win a tight game, but somebody else outside of Joker is going to have to step up throughout the game for that to happen. Oklahoma City can just hit you with a 15-3 run out of nowhere, and you don't recover because they're actually one of the better defenses in basketball too when they have the lockdown. It's a tough matchup. It is a tough matchup. I think this series is over. And it's no shade on the Joker at all. Nothing's changed. I still think he's the best player in basketball. He's just not going to advance past this series.
I think the absence of Michael Malone is absolutely mattered. Look, this might sound funny to you, but I would play the homie. Why are we not playing Dario Saric over Michael Porter Jr.? I don't care if Dario Saric, if he's not as talented as Michael Porter Jr. Give me the homie, man. The homie will give you the effort. He'll absolutely. That's his nickname from Philadelphia. I don't know if y'all knew that, but
he got some dog in him. He got some dog
in him, right?
Yeah.
Let me see him instead of Michael Porter Jr. shooting stupid threes off balance, 1 of 7. Dario Saric will get you the dirty plays, man. He'll get you like a little bit of spark. Give me the homie. 7. Am I wrong?
I don't think you're wrong. I honestly, here's my thing. The 2 problems that I have with Denver. First of all, anybody that believes that Russell Westbrook is still a truly viable player to make an impact on a team did not watch his tenure with the Lakers. I understand that there were some culture issues and those guys didn't gel as much, but that doesn't change the fact that Russell Westbrook was throwing bricks like he was building a house. And then we look last night, 0 for 3 from 3. But it wasn't just him. The only person on the Denver Nuggets team who shot better than 25% from beyond the arch was Nikola Jokic. But then we look at the Thunder. Chet Holmgren was 1 for 2. Jalen Williams, 2 for 5. That's 40%. Hartenstein didn't even take a 3 shot. 1 for 3 for SGA. So that's 33%. I'm sorry. So there was one below 40 there. And then Dort was 4 for 8. They're not putting up dumb threes. They're being extremely efficient. And Denver is throwing bricks like they're trying to build Jokic a new mansion so he can bring his horses over.
You got 2 games tonight. and I got to get your predictions and previews on these games before we close out the show. And listen, the Boston game is very interesting. Prayers out to Jason Tatum.
Yeah.
I know I've given him a lot of slack on this show, but he had successful Achilles tear surgery yesterday. And honestly, man, I feel terrible that man went through that. And that's not what I want. That's not, obviously, I don't like the Boston Celtics. I'm a 76ers fan. They're a rival of mine, but I still root for good basketball, and I still, root for players' health. So it's a shitty injury. He's probably going to miss this year, most of next year, with the injury that he had. So prayers out to Jason Tatum.
He should miss all of next year.
What'd you say?
He should miss all of next year. I'm serious.
Yeah, he will miss all of next year.
Well, Achilles now is a 6 to 9 month recovery.
He's young in his prime. If he sits next year, they're going to get a better draft position to put talent around him when he comes back.
They're not going to miss the playoffs without him.
They're
going to win tonight without him.
They're a playoff team without him. I agree. And a lot of people think they're going to win tonight because it's Celtics pride. Yeah, they can win tonight if Porzingis shows up, if Jrue Holiday actually shoots the basketball, takes more than 4 shots. That those things can happen. But even if they come out and play with a lot of pride and all that kind of stuff, I think New York's going to win the game. I've heard a lot of people saying this is the Jaylen Brown game because he's a $300 million. Look, I like Jaylen Brown, and I think Jaylen Brown is a perfect sidekick to Jason Tatum. And I think you're worth whatever somebody's willing to pay you. So I'll leave it there. If I'm a GM, no, I would never pay Jaylen Brown $300 million. I wouldn't. I don't think he's a $300 million player. But having said that, I don't think Jaylen Brown's going to change who he is. He might come in tonight and he might take 28 shots. He's still not going to be the best player on the floor. The best player on the floor is going to be Jalen Brunson. And I'm not even sure Jaylen Brown will be the second best player on the floor because when it matters most, that's been Mikal Bridges. So I don't see the Boston Celtics winning. I think they show pride. I think it's a close game, but I think they lose.
I think that Boston wins tonight, and I think it's on the back of Jaylen Brown. He better show up because the person. Listen, we talked about this last month. We talked about it not last month, last week. How Jason Tatum didn't do this or Jason Tatum didn't do this. You know who's got we talk about Canada, right? Canada's got the biggest blanket. It's called America that protects them. Like Jaylen Brown's biggest protector is Jason Tatum.
Right.
Because all the hate goes to Jason Tatum. And when Jaylen Brown steps up, it's Jaylen Brown's the best player on the Celtics. And when Jason Tatum has a bad game, Jason Tatum is the problem. So Jaylen Brown often gets slid to the side. The criticism, the microscope, the camera will be solely on Jaylen Brown tonight. And I think that the strength in the fact that no one is bigger than the cog, no cog is bigger than the wheel, it will help Boston tonight. I think Derek White has a big game. I think Peyton Pritchard has a big game. Jaylen Brown. I think the Celtics win tonight.
I think Jaylen Brown, if he presses, is going to have 6 or 7 turnovers.
Okay.
Jaylen Brown dribbling the ball too much is a bad thing. I get it that he needs to be the best player, but he shouldn't press. This team, Jrue Holiday is a double-digit scorer when he shoots, as is Derek White, as is Porzingis. I don't think if they're going to win this game, it has to be Jaylen Brown needs to be the best player in the Celtics, but he doesn't necessarily have to be the leading scorer.
Okay. Last but not least, guys, I don't really have much faith in the team that I predicted to come out of the West anymore without Steph Curry. What percentage chance do you give the Warriors to go into Minnesota in a closeout game and get this game back to Golden State?
I'll give them a 30% chance because I think that I know it's a lot, but I think that Jimmy Butler, this is rarely said about Jimmy Butler, but I think that he felt embarrassed at his performance the last game. I think you're going to get the best version of Jimmy Butler this game. I think you'll get a better version of Buddy Hield and Draymond Green. And right now, remember, it's on the Timberwolves, right? Because the pressure is to close out. What you don't do is lose and then let Steph Curry be a factor back into this in the series in Game 6. You don't want that, because if Steph is a factor in Game 6, you're going to Game 7. You don't want that. So certainly the pressure is on the Timberwolves. And I'll say this, as long as it's a close game, that means 10 points or less, Golden State is going to be a problem. And if they go into the fourth quarter only down 10, all the pressure will shift completely to Minnesota.
I'll what percentage chance do you give them tonight, 7?
And so have they said that Curry's not playing tonight?
Yeah, he's out, ruled out.
Okay. All right. So in that case, I've got to echo what Mo said. 25-30%, because but Minnesota has to close it out tonight, or they will not win this series. Rudy Gobert's a liability. Like, he can be good, but he seems to do sometimes more damage than help. And then, Anthony Edwards, we've talked about it in our chat. That dude is not consistent, and it baffles us how he's considered to be one of the elite players in the game when he doesn't seem to be able to be consistent. He's got talent. I will give you that. But he hasn't been able to close consistency. If Anthony Edwards truly wants to be seen as one of the top tier superstar elite players in this league, he has to dominate tonight, and he has to close out the game.
In the words of my girl Kesha, it's going down. I'm yelling timber. It's going down. I'm sorry. As much as I would love for Golden State to win this game, as much as I would love a signature Jimmy moment, playoff Jimmy, there's no bigger Jimmy Butler fan than me. There's not. It's over. They're not losing the game tonight at home in Minnesota. It's not going to happen. And I honestly think this, right? I'll make a prediction. If for whatever reason Minnesota doesn't win this game, Steph don't play in Game 6 either.
Wow. You think he's that injured, huh?
Yeah, I think what they're doing is by playing it game to game is they're basically giving them an out of saying, well, he would have been back by Game 6. All we need to do is win one game. You don't want to destroy the psyche of the players by telling them he's out for the postseason, or he's out for 3 weeks, or he's out for a month. I think that hamstring injury is way worse, but who knows? I could be wrong. I've been wrong before, plenty of times. We do have Wire to Wire Sports Podcast tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We are going to be talking a lot of stuff. We got the PGA Championship. We're going to be talking a little bit more MLB action tonight. We got a conversation to go about the NFL schedule and the way that's laid out. We got a lot to get into. UFC recap, trivia, me versus Cottrell tonight. Shally's got the question. It'll be a fun night for Wire to Wire Sports Podcast. Make sure you tune in 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. 7. I would love to see you back on here tomorrow morning so we can continue with some Major League Baseball talk. Mo, close us out.
Thank you guys so much for joining us this morning. Make sure you check out all the great content we have at Wire to Wire Network. Wire to Wire Network, we appreciate you.
Same time tomorrow, same bat channel, Wire to Wire Sports Network. We are signing out.